Elliott, thanks very much.
No worries, mate. Good to have you here.
Yeah, appreciate your time. Oompher is all about inspiring people to achieve extraordinary things. So who and what during your life and career has inspired you?
I guess in the nature industry, Edinburgh inspires everyone.
Yeah.
Steve Irwin. But then, I guess of late, people like Bear Grylls, who just he got to where he did because he did exactly what he loved. And if you can find avenues where that entertains people and it can become a career, then you can start, infusing that in the public eye a bit more.
Yeah, and do you have some quite good direct mentors in the industry who help you out and stuff?
Yeah, a good thing about the shark industry is it's so new. And it's very young, so the guys I worked with when I was learning about sharks are the godfathers pretty much.
Yeah.
People like the Mark Addisons, the Ryan Johnsons, and those guys have been really good and supportive because basically sharks needed as much help as they could get, so no one was precious about trying to share their knowledge about them.
Yeah, awesome. And you're 27 now, is that right?
28, mate.
28. Okay.
Get in there.
And you've done Bachelor of Science in Zoology and a Masters in Marine Science. So what started your passion for marine science in the first place?
Well, it's funny because I grew up in Hamilton, as landlocked as you get in New Zealand, but the beauty is I got into surfing.
Yeah.
And surfing took me to Raglan, it was close, and when you're bobbing on the surface of the water, you can't help but think what's underneath you, and generally that is fear of sharks. And so, you're surrounded by animals and nature, and that inherently stimulated my curiosity to figure out more about them.
Yeah.
And marine biology was the natural progression, I guess, from there.
Awesome. And did you used to be scared of sharks yourself?
I still am. The thing is, it's about a respectful fear. It's not a naive fear, and I try and remove the naivety of the fear with people, because at the end of the day, if you're bobbing around on the surface and you look like a Mars bar and you're where Mars bars hang out and something that eats Mars bars is there, it's not illogical that it's going to try and have a go.
Yeah.
What's amazing is how good sharks are at not having a go more often.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I'm bobbing or I'm surfing, I've got it in my head, and all you can do as a surfer is put it out of your head.
Yeah.
But when I'm engaging them underwater, it's a whole different story.
Okay, so it's about being almost feeling that personal connection with them, almost, is it? Or?
Well, it's just that you're playing on their terms. You're not putting them in a situation where they can make a mistake.
Yeah.
You're engaging them eye to eye. I relate it a lot, like sharks are a lot like dogs. If you have a nippy little dog who knows a little bit mischievous and he's sitting in the corner there and you just turn your back and you sit watching TV, he might come nip you in the ankle.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there looking at him and giving him that engagement and showing, look, I'm not something to be nipped.
Yeah.
You can have a beautiful interaction, and that's where it all changes.
Okay, and why are sharks important to the world?
Well, to put it into context, they're the longest living vertebrate animal in the world. They've been around before dinosaurs, well before. 400 million years they've been around. Now what's important about that is they're an apex predator that has crafted the stability of the entire ocean ecosystem. What we've done in 20 years is remove 90% of them. And in doing that, who are we to do that? Do stuff with 400 million years of stability.
Yeah.
So basically we've seen ecosystem collapse in health and structure because sharks have been removed in huge numbers.
Okay, and what happens when when sharks do get removed from the ecosystem? Does it mean that you get an overpopulation of the next level down, or?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's called a trophic cascade. Basically, you release the predation pressure, and in doing so, those animals then can grow in numbers. So it sounds good, sweet, tuna or whatever going to explode in numbers, but it's a short-term thing. They will then exhaust their food supply, and so on and so forth down the food chain until it all goes out of whack. And when we get the majority of our oxygen from the ocean, from phytoplankton, it's not really a smart thing to mess with.
No, exactly. And with 112 shark species in New Zealand, why did you choose to study the blue shark specifically?
It comes down to science, basically. I was in South Africa studying great whites. That's where my specialty was lying.
Yeah.
But when I came back to New Zealand, there was already 2 scientists doing great white research, and it was more exploratory, whereas what I became aware of was shark finning was a major issue in New Zealand, and blue sharks are the main species that gets finned, and it's in huge numbers.
Yeah.
So for a PhD, you have an issue that you have to throw big money at, and this was a big issue with money being thrown at.
Yeah, and huge numbers, and as you say, we're one of the top 20 countries in the world to export shark fins. So is that your mission to change that?
Yeah, it was basically the passion. That's what, for a PhD you need passion because you need persistence, and it's not fun work reading numbers that are just shocking,
Yeah.
But the light I saw was that the only reason why it's happening is because it's out there offshore where people don't see it. So all I had to do was teach people it, show them the numbers, and that it was a no-brainer. It was black and white that we should be stopping this.
Yeah, and is that part of your PhD is actually helping to stop that?
Yeah, the sad thing is a lot of the large animals we have offshore, number one, people don't even know they're there. And number two, no science or research is being done on them.
Yeah.
And what happens is that all you've got is commercial fishing going on in absence of this data. You're dicing with the devil, and when it's something like sharks, you can't afford to do that.
Yeah. And globally, I mean, the number of sharks killed each year is 30% of the overall tuna catch, which is 70 to 90 million sharks. What can we be doing as everyday people to bring that number down?
I don't buy canned tuna.
Yeah.
If you give people, the knowledge, they can make the decisions themselves. I don't harp on to people like do this or do that.
Yeah.
But by giving people the insight, you realise that the tuna industry it's shocking. It's over-exhausted. The numbers are unsustainable. And in the wake of that, sharks became a byproduct that they could earn some money to pay for their diesel. And they were never quoted in an appropriate way to ensure their sustainability. So sharks have basically, worn the brunt of the tuna industry.
Really?
So, it's just about people, understanding where their food comes from, And the tuna industry is something that is not a good thing to support.
Yes. So why are sharks part of the tuna industry in that way exactly?
It's all about habitat overlap. Sharks and tuna live in the same zones offshore in the blue water. They eat the same thing.
Yeah.
And you put, 10,000 hooks out on one line, you're going to inherently catch something that you're not trying to catch. Blue sharks in New Zealand make up almost a third of the tuna catch. And globally, they're outweighing the actual targeted tuna. So the problem was that they had all these sharks that were taking their hooks, and inherently, back in the day, they would just cut the line and let them go because there was no value.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, 20 years ago, shark fin soup boomed. It was $1 billion industry, second, to like the drug trade, and so all of a sudden you could earn good money off the fins, and it took up no room in your boat. So sharks just got demolished in 20 years, to the point where 1 in 5 shark species now is threatened with endangerment or extinction, and 90% of the sharks are wiped out on this earth.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. And with shark fin soup costing about $100 US a bowl in China as sort of a wealth symbol.
Yeah.
How do you convey the message through to people like that? Is that a real challenge in
Well,
your
it's
work? Or?
It's easy. I mean, to be honest, it's all about internal education. So shark fin soup was a dish that emperors were served because, you triumphed over this big apex predator, this dangerous thing, plus it had these perceived medicinal purposes. Now, what happened was GDP in China boomed with free trade and open market 20 years ago. So millionaires became commonplace. All of a sudden, they could obtain this status symbol, this bowl of soup. And that's what led to the decimation. Now, to change that, what has been fantastic in the last 10 years is education internally in China showed people that, one, it was ruining shark populations and causing problems to the ecosystem, and two, sharks as an apex predator extremely high in mercury. And you can actually be poisoned to the point of death. We've witnessed recently in Madagascar, 10 people died from it. So it was a no-brainer. So giving the people the information, now we've seen an 82% decline in the demand from China for shark fins, which is fantastic. That's how you solve problems. And to be honest, it's pretty sad that New Zealand only, next month is going to get on board with this shark fin ban.
Okay.
Yet the problem hopefully has already been solved from the inside out.
Yeah, awesome. So in New Zealand, will it be illegal to fin sharks? Or?
What you learn by reading actual government policy is, there's loopholes, there's fine lines. The definition of shark finning is cutting the fins off an animal and dumping its body over the side. That will be illegal in New Zealand.
Yeah.
The policy for blue sharks is that they have to bring back the body of the blue shark with its fins, either artificially attached or naturally attached. That allows us to count the number of blue sharks that are coming in, but more so it's a speed bump in the sense that now fishermen have to fill their holds with blue shark bodies, which are relatively worthless for their flesh.
Yeah.
So it was almost basically, a hindrance that was going to stop them bringing them back for fins.
Yeah.
Let alone the demand's gone down, they can barely sell them. We've cut off transport networks like Air New Zealand to ship them out. So, basically put in enough speed bumps that it's not worth their while to fin sharks anymore.
Exactly.
So the policy still allows shark finning to occur in New Zealand, per se, but hopefully it will. Yeah, it's going to save a lot of sharks' lives, which is fantastic.
Awesome. So what's your dream still to come today?
What's great is when you get conservational victories like bans on shark finning, we can start focusing where we should be putting our efforts, which is to understanding these animals, learning more about them. So now I can focus my energy on the positive side of things, showing people what sharks are. We've got 112 species in New Zealand. Most New Zealanders wouldn't have a clue we even had sharks, let alone ones that are right on our doorstep. And more importantly, what their function is. Every summer we see on the paper, shark at Pauanui, and you see a dorsifin, people are freaking out. People think that shark is sitting behind the breaker waiting for them to walk in so it could eat them.
Yeah.
Pauanui was closed for 2 weeks, so I went there and, gave this lifeguards the information to pass on to the public that they're actually bloated full of crustaceans and stingrays from eating up in the harbours all night, and they're sitting there just trying to relax and digest their food. You walk within 3 feet of him, he's gone. He's scared. Sharks are much more scared of you than the other way around.
Yeah.
So I guess my dream is to continue putting efforts into all the other shark species in New Zealand, because they are still under pressure. Yeah. And taking people out to get their head under the water to realise the beautiful things we have just offshore.
Awesome. So just a few quick fire questions to finish. In summary, what would your top 3 bits of advice be for people wanting to get into marine science?
You've got to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
Everyone says it sounds corny, but that's the truth. Passion, perseverance, and a purpose, I guess, Mine was to help this animal. You need a purpose for something.
Yeah, and education's a good thing to do as well?
Oh, entirely. People ask me how do they get to do what I do. Hard work at university, man. 10 years at university.
Absolutely. And do you have to be willing to travel as well? Is that a big part of it?
Oh, for sure. But it's pretty easy to be willing to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about in terms of sharks specifically? If people wanting to get into shark research, what would you recommend there?
Experience.
Yeah.
I went to South Africa. I learned from the best. Never try and go get it yourself.
Yeah.
Go do it with professionals. Hopefully I'm going to start something up in New Zealand in the next couple of years.
Cool.
That will allow young people and youth to get out there and get the experience you need.
Awesome. And is it hard to fund? Can you tell us what we're doing sitting here on a yacht today?
Well, yes, this is $1 million boat, and it's not mine. But that's the beauty of, I guess, doing things that involve people for the right reasons.
Yeah.
People will help you out. Yeah. And you get people like James who helps me out with this boat, which is just fantastic.
Yeah. And what would the 16-year-old boy you were think of who had become today? Would he be pretty proud?
I'm pretty much still a 16-year-old boy in here, man, and I'm stoked on what I do, and it's really fun, and I love it,
Yeah.
So, I think he'd be stoked.
Yeah, good stuff. So to finish, look, your work's bloody awesome. We're proud of what you've done. So can you look down at camera here and tell us, what are your wise words for the people of New Zealand?
Figure out what you love and do it as much as possible. It sounds corny, people say it, but not enough people do it. That's basically it. Follow your dreams and they'll become true.
Cool. Robbie, Elliott, thanks very much.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Thank you.